That was the president as he was campaigning. Big race going on today in Ohio outside of Columbus. And this is the Troy Balderson race for Congress. The president was out there campaigning. That was on Saturday night. He introduced Jim Jordan, and obviously the crowd went absolutely insane. And Congressman Jim Jordan joins us now, along with our friend John Solomon, who has a huge breaking news story. Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry, you're running for Speaker.
We sure are. It was a great event, Sean. The president knocked it out of the park. There were thousands of people turned away. It was the air conditioning wasn't working, and yet people stayed there for hours to hear the president talk. And it was and I think, look, it's tight in this race. It is really tight. But I think if Troy wins, it's going to be because the president put him over the top and came in. But it's tight. I think he's going to win, but it's a tight race. And the president, like I said, was just tremendous Saturday night. The people loved it.
You know, it's really important. Look, I think that this race, the Democrats have nothing to offer. Except, they want to impeach Trump, but they just have stopped saying it. So it's basically a big lie to the American people, and a manipulative lie. Number one. Number two, they want their crumbs back. Amazing. They call it crumbs, the tax cuts, a couple of $1,000 for a family, and they call it crumbs, but they want them back. They want to keep Obamacare, which has worked out so well for millions and millions of Americans. And then on top of all of that, they want open borders, eliminating ICE, and they want all the investigations into how corrupt some of the highest levels of the FBI and the DOJ have been in terms of an effort coordinated to destroy Donald Trump.
Yep, no, exactly right. They want to raise your taxes. They want to abolish ICE and not secure the border. They want to socialize medicine. They want to impeach the president. And if they get power, do you think it's been tough for us to get documents from the FBI and the DOJ right now? We won't get squat from them if they're in power. So that's what's at stake in this election versus, again, what the president has accomplished in 18 months. I mean, it is truly phenomenal. I see the markets up today, the economy growing at a record rate, unemployment at its lowest, the embassy injured, all those things we rattled off on Saturday night. That is an amazing year and a half, but that's what's at stake. And part of that's going to happen in this election today. So let's hopefully hope that Troy Balderson can win this thing.
All right, let me go to John Solomon of The Hill. He has a lot of breaking news. The extent of coordination between Bruce, Nellie Orr, and even connections to special counsel Robert Mueller. And what's worse is this goes far deeper than we ever knew. Page and Strzok as well. John, tell us what you've been able to find out when you got emails and information to corroborate all this.
Yes, thank God for the Justice Department emails and text messages, because it seems like the entire Russia case was carried out by text message and email. It's an amazing thing. So Congress, Congressman Jordan and his committee and many others are beginning to get a series of documents that are going to continue to flow for several days to Congress and to some of the other oversight bodies. But they show unequivocally that Bruce Orr, a deputy to Obama Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates, the woman who signed the first FISA warrant on the Trump campaign, had extensive contacts with the two Democratic opposition researchers who were being paid by Hillary Clinton, by the Democratic Party, to defeat Donald Trump with the Russia allegations. And that is Glenn Simpson at Fusion GPS and his British intelligence operative, Christopher Steele. These contacts started early in 2016. In the critical days just before the FBI opened up its probe on Trump-Russia, the contacts increased. And then after Steele's fired by the FBI, because he's a snitch that went bad, he violated the rules, he's fired by the FBI, or becomes a critical conduit of information who continues to feed the FBI information from Steele, even though he's been terminated as an unreliable confidential source. So what you see, these emails, more than even the Strzok and Page emails, show for sure that the Hillary Clinton campaign, the DNC, and their actors, their agents, were really working hand in foot with the Justice Department, the FBI, the intelligence community, to further what has been still an unproven narrative, the unproven narrative of collusion. There's some great quotes in here. You can see. I want
you to explain it, though. I mean, you can read them and explain them to people, because I want everybody to understand what we're really talking about here. Is not only was there, the dossier bought and paid for, Russian lies, now debunked. It was disseminated to manipulate and misinform the American people to basically steal an election. That's bad enough. Politicians lie, but then it's used as the bulk of information, according to the Nunes and the Grassley-Graham memos, to obtain a FISA warrant on an opposition party candidate in an election year, so that they can spy on that campaign. And then Nellie Orr is working for Fusion GPS that got the Perkins Coie funneled money from the DNC and Hillary Clinton to pay a foreign national, Christopher Steele, who himself in an interrogatory said, "Oh, this is raw intelligence. We haven't verified it." But you're telling me it goes way beyond that Christopher Steele and Bruce Orr and others have contacted each other how many times, and they want to give this what they know is false information to Robert Mueller.
I can't yet confirm the Mueller angle. That's something we're looking at, but I can confirm that Orr was feeding information to the FBI on behalf of Steele after Steele was fired. These are in the early days of the Trump presidency when Steele was worried that the whole investigation was going to collapse, and so Orr becomes this conduit to feed the FBI information. Meanwhile, he has a conflict of interest. His wife, financially a beneficiary of the Fusion GPS project, she's got this ethical entanglement with Orr, but the FBI is using him. They're still getting information from Steele, who they fired for violating source rules. And you're looking over the course of 2016 and 2017, it looks, I'm still counting these up because I'm in the reporting process, it looks like 4 dozen contacts in 2016 and 2017 between Steele, Simpson, and Orr. I mean, this is extensive. These are
Steele, Simpson of Fusion GPS, Bruce Orr, whose wife was partly responsible for putting the phony Russian dossier together for Fusion GPS, right? Well, how do you interpret this? How should the American people interpret that?
I think this is the clearest evidence to date, even more than the stroke and page emails, that the FBI's counterintelligence division and the Justice Department's National Security Division were duped into becoming political opposition researchers for Hillary Clinton and the Democratic National Committee. They allowed Christopher Steele, Bruce Orr, and Glenn Simpson to manipulate the intelligence processes to put a lot of unverified information into the intelligence community and then leak it to the news media in an effort to smear Trump, to try to defeat him in the election, and then when they couldn't defeat him in the election, to smear him in the opening days of his presidency. I'm going to read you one quote from a text message. It's an extraordinary text message. It's January 31st, 2017, 11 days after President Trump took office. It's the day that Trump fired Sally Yates, that's Bruce Orr's boss. She was fired for insubordination. She refused an order. He fired her. Christopher Steele writes from London, B, meaning Bruce, doubtless a sad and crazy day for you regarding Sally Yates. Just want to check with you that you are okay, still in the SITU. That's a short synonym for the intelligence community, and able to help locally as discussed, along with your bureau colleagues. Keep in mind, at this point, Steele's been fired 3 months before. He's not supposed to have any contact with the FBI. Here is Steele and Orr consorting on how they're going to continue to get Trump information to the FBI, to the intelligence community, even after he's been terminated for cause. It's an extraordinary admission in the documents, and we now know, because of Senator Grassley's work, because of Congressman Jordan, that the FBI had 7 interviews where they treated Orr like he was an asset, a source, and they treat or they interview him about what Steele's telling them, even though they've already fired Steele. They're not supposed to be using any of Steele's information. It really shows how this whole process was corrupted.
Let me bring Jim Jordan. Jim, I mean, honestly, you've been fighting for this information, these materials, everything in between. And, you know, it's a slow bleed. It's like, and it gets worse every time. And this now puts it on another level. Explain your thoughts and your interpretation.
Three quick. John's been great. You've been great on this, digging and working hard. But 3 things. Remember, it was just 3 weeks ago that Peter Strzok admitted in the hearing we had that the FBI, in fact, was getting the dossier from Bruce Orr, who we know was now getting it from Chris Steele and getting it from his wife, Nellie, who worked for Fusion. Second, when you read these emails, it's Glenn, it's Bruce, it's Nellie, it's Chris. It's like these were all best buddies. It's all first name. So to John's point, the number of times they were in touch with each other, they were like friends. They were all working together on this project of putting this dossier together that was, disproven. And finally, the big takeaway for me is we got to get Bruce Orr and Nellie Orr in for a deposition as soon as possible. Bruce Orr is now the key to this, in my judgment. I think John is exactly right. He's the guy that we need to sit down and talk with. We need to figure out what he said what took place in these meetings with Christopher Steele, because a lot of these emails.
But Chris, but wait a minute, but we got to add some other components to this, because remember, when President Trump was coming in office, now we're post-dating this that Orr and Steele are still involved. Remember, It's unverified and salacious, according to Comey telling Trump in January of 2017 before he takes the oath of office. But yet, it was Comey who signed off on the first FISA warrant in October 2016. And yet, meanwhile, we now know that not only was Christopher Steele being paid by the DNC and Hillary, but now also by the FBI, and then was fired by the FBI, but the FBI still used it, even though he was a liar and a leaker. They still used it as the basis to get the FISA warrant against Donald Trump's associate in that particular case. But now, how much did the FBI pay this guy?
Yeah, they continue to use the guy's information, Chris Steele's information, after they had fired him. They just routed it through Bruce and Nellie Orr. That is the key takeaway here. I mean, they go to the court. They don't tell the court who paid for the dossier, namely the Clinton campaign. They don't tell the court that the guy who wrote the darn thing had been terminated, but they kept using, and then when they did tell the court he'd been terminated, they kept using his information. It was just being routed through Bruce Orr and Nellie Orr. That is a big, big problem, and it is not supposed to work that way in this country, but it did.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back. More with Jim Jordan, more with John Solomon coming up on the other side. As we continue with as we continue with Congressman Jim Jordan and the Hill's John Solomon, all right, what else are we going to learn about this Jim Jordan, and what do you see on the horizon?
Well, let me just read one of these emails to you, Sean, to talk about the kind of relationship they had. And this is from July 30th, so I think it's significant because it's the day before the Russian investigation into President Trump is launched. So on July 30th, Christopher Steele writes to Bruce Orr, and he says, "Great to see you and Nellie this morning, Bruce." They met in Washington, D.C. "Great to see you and Nellie this morning, Bruce. Let's keep in touch on the substantive issues. Glenn is happy to speak with you on this if it would help." So this is what I mean. Glenn, Nellie, Chris, Bruce, they're all best friends. They're meeting in Washington, D.C. They had their meeting the day before the Russian investigation starts, and Christopher Steele says, "And oh, by the way, Glenn's happy to talk to you guys as well." I mean, Glenn Simpson, being paid by the Clinton campaign, is talking to Bruce Orr, feeding information to him that they're then going to use to get this secret warrant to spy on the Trump campaign.
Unbelievable.
That is as wrong as it gets.
How corrupt? When do these people ever go to jail is the question. John, what else are we going to learn in your article before Hannity tonight?
Yeah, I really think that the Congressman Jordan, Congressman Meadows, Senator Grassley fought for a long time. There's a document that came out Friday that a lot of people haven't embraced the significance of. One, the FBI fired Steele on November 1st for leaking to the media and violating his confidential source rules. They wrote this sentence: "The agent has advised the source," meaning Steele, "he was not to operate to obtain any intelligence whatsoever on behalf of the FBI." On November 1st, the FBI said, "We will no longer rely on Christopher Steele." 3 days later, Bruce Orr begins to feed the information back to the FBI through a conduit. The FBI knew exactly what it was doing, and there's this great text message where Steele's afraid that Orr's about to be fired by Trump, just like Sally Yates, and he writes and says, "Just want to check you're okay, still in the situ, able to help locally as discussed along with your bureau colleagues." He wants to make sure that if Orr gets fired, he can still backdoor his corrupt intelligence, his false, unproven allegations to the FBI. It's extraordinary that the FBI allowed this to go on. It violates their own rules.
It violates their rules. FISA abuse galore. The corruption and incestuous relationships are just beyond the pale. And where this ends, it's not going to end well for a lot of people, I don't think. I've never seen such an abuse of power, corruption, an attempt to rig and investigate an election in American history like this. It's just beyond the pale. All right, we'll see you both on, we'll see Mark Meadows and John Solomon on Hannity tonight. It'll be our lead story, I'm sure, 9 Eastern on the Fox News Channel. Thank you both for being with us.